So onto the first headline is an article posted on The Conversation, although it's not hard to find. And it is, of course, about COVID, with the latest COVID variant being nicknamed Kraken, XBB 1.5. And essentially the gist of all these articles is going to be, hey, this new variant is somewhere in the world or everywhere in the world, or it's about to enter your country, or it's not yet about to enter your country. Things that are very specific that may be a little lost on people who don't know the molecular virology behind things.
The sort of threshold of information's changed during COVID. So
yeah, that's the one very minor silver lining and all the doom and gloom.
Someone's been really excited to name this, I think.
It sounds like a nerd. It sounds like a nerdy scientist, not a polished PR person. It sounds like a nerdy scientist did it. And
I mean, someone's gotten really excited.
Yeah. And look, I'm a nerd. Like, that's great. I would have named it something even more nerdy.
Like,
Kraken is great.
So you've got to instill some feeling behind it. From reading the article, maybe it sounds a bit more terrifying than it actually is. So
that's the pitch of it, right? So let's break down how new variants are typically presented to people. So they talk about its relationship to another variant or strain that people have heard of recently, say Delta or Omicron, and then it presents this very common thing where it shows, in this case, it talks about mutations. And first of all, people might not know what a mutation necessarily is. Maybe if you read comic books and X-Men, and you kind of get the idea there's like something changing the DNA. They put this kind of naming system. It's a S486P mutation in a specific protein called the spike protein, right? So there's a letter and a series of numbers and another letter. Now, if I was someone in the general public, that wouldn't make much sense to me at all.
No, it wouldn't.
Right?
It wouldn't. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more of an understanding out there, understanding of mutations and what it could mean. In this case, we're talking about a change in the protein that may render the virus more infectious or not able to be detected as well by the immune system, or changes like that. But this article was in The Conversation, was it? Or
yeah, that's right. So it's based on The Conversation. It's got a scary purple diagram of COVID.
The Conversation does tend to delve a little bit more into the science when they're writing the article, because they're choosing usually it's university professors and experts in the field to write these articles.
It's really great, actually. We backtrack a little bit because we don't know who will be listening to this. Hopefully it's professors exclusively, only professors, but
just my boss.
Maybe just your boss or my boss. My boss's boss or our boss's boss.
Yeah, that's
DNA
right.
is made up fundamentally of bases, A, T, G, and C, and those bases are configured to form proteins, and proteins are made up of individual amino acids. So when they give you this kind of naming system to say it's S486P, 2 letters represent different amino acids. There's about 20 different variants, depending on how you measure that, of amino acids. So the 486 refers to not like how infectious it is. 486 refers to the position in that sequence. So the 486th amino acid in that string of amino acids has been mutated from an S to a P. So
in that particular protein that they're talking
about. So this is very useful for scientists.
Yes.
Right? So we know,
absolutely.
We pinpoint exactly what has changed.
That's right.
But almost completely useless to a news agency, right? That gives you no value judgment on the things people care about, which is it going to be more infectious? Is it going to be more lethal, right? And that doesn't tell you anything about that.
I think if you say a mutation in the spike protein, that that's something that's just quite understandable by the general public. They understand sort of the significance of the spike protein. Delving into the details of the specific amino acid changes is probably not really necessary. What are they saying about the how bad they think this variant will be?
Well, this is where the caveat train arrives, because there's no quicker way than to look like a fool, a very well-educated fool, to go on some kind of online platform to proclaim something about the latest strain of COVID. Either it's the end of the world or it's nothing.
That's
or
right.
You have to do this and do that and whatever. Like that's the quickest way, because the evolutionary pressure on this virus, given that it's spread globally,
that's right,
is so extreme that its pace is just way quicker than anything we can project forwards. And we are just historically, we as in humans are just historically bad at making predictions about any kinds of thing. With that caveat aside, currently it seems like the Kraken is, I think the article says, more bark than bite, I think is the phrasing they use.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
that it's not necessarily more infectious than the previous Omicron variant, and it's in terms of lethality globally is maybe the same or a little less than the previous variant. I mean, I recently caught COVID. I don't know what variant it is.
So did I actually.
Yeah. So it was my second time. The first time I was bedridden for a week, and then all the usual things. We don't rehash this, but yeah, I lost my sense of taste and smell for a month. I had a sort of quite debilitating cough for a couple of months, and that was pretty bad. But this time it was kind of like a day and kind of recovered.
Yeah.
But I'm not hopefully in the immune compromised population. You caught it recently as well?
Recently, yeah. I had actually had the flu 3 weeks prior, so it was a bit of a shock to the system. It was probably a bit run down, and all of a sudden I had this feeling that something wasn't quite right. I felt like it came on really suddenly out in the chilled section of the supermarket, and suddenly sort of felt like I was developing those body aches, came straight home and tested myself, and immediate positive on my rat test.
Right.
I think I was actually starting to think I wasn't going to catch it because I've managed to evade it so far, but wasn't the case. It was not too bad. Didn't have super high fever. In my case, the influenza was worse. Like you said, I developed a cough as well that just kind of hung around for a long time. I think I was lucky to have not too severe of a case, which is not the case for everyone. So the first time you had COVID was worse.
It was much worse, and I could distinctly tell it was different than other things I've caught, cold, flu.
Yeah.
I'm triple vaxxed. For whatever that's worth at this point.
Yeah,
right?
me too.
And I'm sure it would have been worse if we hadn't been. And also, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we might develop long COVID at some point with lingering symptoms that kind of are unpredictable, because it essentially triggers all sorts of autoimmunity. And I don't think there's a good grasp on exactly what long COVID is, and also how variable it is. Again, we're not in the prediction business in this sphere. It's just so wildly changing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Which brings me back to this idea where the evolutionary pressure on the virus, when it's spread globally, it's not like a local epidemic, it's very much a global pandemic. Right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the virus from an evolutionary perspective, I mean, this is more your area of expertise, Jack, wants to be able to spread. If it made people too sick, that would be inhibiting its ability to spread, not in the virus's best interest, so to speak. They were predicting early on, I guess, in the pandemic that it may eventually just kind of mutate itself to a very mild disease. So it'll be interesting to see.
Again, those people are now scalps on the wall of some online blogger. Like, you fool.
I don't know.
All your credentials in education, you made all these wrong predictions.
Yeah.
But essentially, this is what I tell my students all the time. Microbes, whether they be bacteria or pathogens or viruses, they've got no agenda other than just to replicate.
That's right.
But that's their sole agenda. So if anything they're doing compromises that in some way, then natural selection, where the ones that are more favored to spread without killing the host, because if you kill the host,
how's it going to spread?
How's it going to spread? People are going to go near a dead person, but they'll get near people on buses and coughs and that kind of stuff. Hopefully this is the eventual shift towards our thinking. Again, who knows? We're not in the prediction business of COVID.
No.
That's a bad business.
I don't want to be.
No.
Don't want to be.